What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Wednesday, September 27, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, I think I'm breaking the news to you. We just yesterday, so we're recording Tuesday night, so this was Monday, we welcomed our 9th foster dog and 11th foster animal into the family. We have Reed here. He's about a 3-year-old pit bull mix, so if you're interested in adoption, hit me up because he is available to be adopted.
That is news. That is news to me. I did not know that yet. How is the energy and the range of dogs you've had? What kind of energy we bring in here?
So I didn't want to start on a down, a little bit of sad story, but he was adopted from the rescue October of 2020. So, yeah, you're doing the math right. He was returned 3 years later. So we took him in because we knew it was going to be a tough transition from going from a house and a family that he has known his whole life pretty much into a house that he knew nobody. So we stepped up and took him. So far, he's adjusting very, very well. He's currently right next to me sleeping. So if you're hearing snoring, that's him snoring right now. But we're slowly introducing him to our two dogs. We didn't want to overwhelm him because, again, it's like taking a dog that's been in one area and one family for 3 years and uprooting his whole life and changing it. So we're trying to bring him along slowly, but he's a very sweet boy. If you are not a dog person, he looks very intimidating, but he's a very, very sweet boy. I think he's going to be a couch potato, though, Phil. I think he's going to fit in very well at the Kenny household.
So he'll be really great for Sundays full of the NFL.
Yes. Yeah. Sundays when I'm watching football. Now, I think the first London game is 9:30. So now 9:30 a.m. until, 11:30 p.m. now is just strictly football. So, yeah, perfect. He's going to fit in right at home. But if you do have any interest in adoption, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and reach out to me there at Buffalo Sports Collective and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We have a jam-packed show, so let's kick it off. The Bills, they had a game on Sunday, 1 o'clock, primetime game, for me at least. They won 37-3. Yes, Riverboat Ron kicks a field goal at the last second to break the shutout because nothing makes you feel more special and like, let's go get them the next week, like a field goal right at the end. If you actually wanted to put some inspiration and passion behind your team, you would have went for it on 4th down, but you're a reason you're coaching Washington for a reason. Allen, Cook, Diggs, the whole offensive line, defense. I don't know where you want to start this one, Phil, but it was a defensive onslaught, at least in my opinion, that pretty much carried the day for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, we can pretty much start with the defense if you want. We'll start with the pretty much all positive. Yeah, the defense was incredible. I mean, the only thing that was really a negative was Robinson actually had a pretty good game. I had a prop bet on Robinson between his yards rushing and receiving to get under 70.5, and he finished with 70, so I appreciate him for that. That was very nice, and of the Bills. But, I mean, other than him, I mean, he went 10 for 70, which is pretty solid and something that the Bills have had issues with, other than, I mean, Jacobs. But Jacobs, again, I don't know. He looks like a shell of himself currently. Sorry for your fantasy team and saying that out loud. But
yeah, thanks.
Outside of Brian Robinson running pretty well, the Bills' defense was beyond incredible. I mean, I don't know if you can put much more of a stamp on a game than they did in that one. I mean, I know fantasy purposes, they were pushing pretty hard for that Dallas early game that they played against the Giants where they won 40-0. The Bills almost had a pretty similar repeat of 37-0, but I mean, the sacks were there, the interceptions were there, the turnovers, everything was just absolutely lights out for the defense. They looked insane, and I know this is the kind of game like you want to look really good. Again, I mean, Howell's okay, he's comparable. I mean, he's supposed to be, he's supposed to be decent. I'm not going to say he's an elite quarterback by any means, but he's supposed to be okay. And this is a game that you expect your defense to do really well in, but it's one thing to expect them to, and another to watch them go out and dominate as much as they did. It was just a clinic that they put on for the defense, and it looked really, really good.
Yeah, they pressured Howell on 27 of 39 dropbacks, which is 69. Nice. 0.2%, second highest ever. They're the first team since 1985 to have a game with 9 sacks and 4 interceptions. The offensive line did not do Sam Howell any justice whatsoever. In the second half, it was like he was... Who was the quarterback that said he was seeing ghosts or something like that? Was that Zach Wilson? I can't remember who it was.
I do know what you're talking about. It might have been.
Yeah, they were saying like they were seeing ghosts or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that, where he was almost getting pressure in his face every single time. But the defensive line, they're just going to get even better when Von Miller comes back. But Floyd, Lawson, Rousseau, Epinesa, Kingsley Jonathan even got a couple runs there. They got 4 sacks, 21 pressures, an interception, and a touchdown from Epinesa. That line is just going to get even better when you add Von Miller to it, which in turn is going to help your linebackers, which is in turn is going to help your DBs. But I think the star of the game, and there's quite a few. Floyd's been having an unbelievable season so far. Epinesa has kind of come out of nowhere. Rousseau has taken that step forward. Matt Milano is just the true all-pro like he was last year. And then you got Trey White and Micah Hyde. We saw both of those guys get interceptions, which felt good. But I think for back-to-back weeks now, the player that is the biggest standout is Terrell Bernard. He is a legit player. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, an interception, 2 quarterback hurries, and a recovered fumble. Now, he already has equaled Tremaine Edmonds' career highs in sacks and interceptions, and we're 3 games in. Now, I think Tremaine Edmonds is more consistent of a player than Terrell Bernard is, but I think Bernard makes those type of plays that we wished Edmonds would make, where it's just those splash plays, the sacks, the interceptions, just those flashy plays that not just makes it on a highlight reel, but impacts the game more than just making it a regular tackle. I think if he can he's not going to keep up this pace because this pace is unbelievable, but if he can keep up this type of flashiness, this defense is going to be on a different level than we have seen in years past.
And it's only his second year. Right. It's his first as a starter for the most part. So, I mean, you also just might see him grow quite a bit this is, I think, to me, what you want to see or what you'd rather see. I feel like the consistency should come as he becomes just, more used to the game, used to the NFL. The more he plays, you expect the consistency as a player and his instincts for consistency to be, to not be out of position in certain plays, not overrun certain plays, things like that. You expect that to get better as he plays more. So I think, if anything, you'd want to see the splash plays early and not have the consistency be there right away. Like, if you had to choose one or the other, like you said, it's something that Edmonds just didn't really give the Bills. I think he was a ridiculously consistent player, like you said, and he's a player that was never out of position, but he didn't have a lot of interceptions, didn't have a lot of sacks, didn't have a lot of these types of splash plays. And I think for a young linebacker, I think you want to see the splash more than you want to see the consistency, because hopefully that can build throughout his career. Again, only his second year, first really as a starter. So hopefully the consistency comes, but from what you just said and like everything you're witnessing from this player, and the splash plays are just incredible. And like you said, he is a player, and he's kind of one that we have been, we were nervous about for sure in the offseason as far as losing Edmonds, what that meant to the Bills. But he, early on in the season so far, has really proven that he can step into that role and make it, just as effective as Edmonds, if not more, again, with those splash plays. And then Epinesa, I think, has been, like you mentioned, coming on strong. I think he's been a little bit of a surprise. He was one that, I don't want to say we left him for dead already, because he's still very young as well, but he was someone who was just a disappointment over the last few seasons. And I think he's had a really strong start to his season as well. And if he can continue, I think he'd be kind of a bit of a surprise. And I know you expected him in this rotation. He's still a big part of this starting roster, but someone that you just didn't expect to see what you're getting out of him early. Obviously, the pick six is not going to happen very often, and that's kind of a bonus. But for the most part, he's just playing better, I think, early on than we expected him to. And I think that's exciting for him moving forward. And like you said, when Miller gets back, this already scary defensive line, something that the Bills have been asking for years now is finally looking like it's coming to fruition. And when Miller gets back, it's going to look even scarier. So that's a really good sign for the defense and a great start for them to their season.
Yeah, two last notes on the defense really quick. Got to remember, Bernard didn't even play in the preseason because he was hurt. So this is like 3 games into his preseason now. And if anything indicates that preseason really isn't all that important and never play your starters, yeah, right, it's Bernard. Second one, Sean McDermott can still coach defense. I was a little hesitant, maybe not even hesitant. It was one of my question marks going into the season is, can McDermott coach the defense and be a head coach? And 3 games in, again, small sample size, but so far this defense is, I'm not saying they're better than years past, but they're more electric and you're seeing more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Again, you haven't really faced a true legit quarterback yet. You've faced 4 plays of Aaron Rodgers, the rest of the game of Zach Wilson. You had Jimmy Garoppolo last week, and then you just had Sam Howell on Sunday. So you haven't really faced anybody. The next test we'll cover really quickly in a minute, but it's a very good small sample size so far. I'm excited for it, but we'll move over to the offense. This seemed like another nice Josh Allen game where besides the one throw, and I know a lot of people are saying, it was a pass punt. That's fine, but I still want to see those opportunities where it's at least a catchable ball, and Gabe Davis was not able to catch that whatsoever. Again, you can look back at it and say, hey, he threw an interception. You can criticize that all you want. I just want him to be a little bit more smarter when you're picking and choosing it. Again, no big damage because you're facing Washington. Washington's offense wasn't moving the ball whatsoever. But it's just I want him to pick and choose those a little bit better. Again, that's nitpicking for me because looking back at it now, you can pick and choose it. But I thought, again, this was another Josh Allen game where he didn't have to do too much to win this game just because the defense was just so good.
Yeah, the offense was kind of my negative for this one. Like you said, the defense really took over and pretty much did everything the offense needed them to do. So they weren't asked to do much. You didn't have to keep up in this game. I mean, Washington was blanked pretty much the entire game. But even still, it was only 16-0 for a really long time, which means Washington was in the game for a really long time. And it seemed like this game was similar to the Jets game where they just didn't spread it out as much. The targets, I mean, it was a Stephon Diggs filled game, which I'm perfectly fine with. I mean, he had 12 targets. The next highest on the team was 4 with Gabe Davis. So, I mean, I think last week they spread it around extremely consistently, including Stephon Diggs. Like, no one really had an explosion of targets. It was dispersed very, very evenly. And this game was very reliant on James Cook and Stephon Diggs pretty much carrying the entire team. And then Gabe Davis had his nice touchdown. But for the most part, it was your kind of all-stars carrying the offense, which is perfectly fine in a game like this where you're just kind of killing the clock and moving things around because your defense was doing amazing. But I would have rather have seen a little bit more of what we saw in week 2 and not what we saw in week 1. I mean, Allen, 20 of 32 is perfectly fine. I mean, he didn't have a bad game by any means. The offense didn't really have a bad game, but I just expected them to put this game away a lot sooner than they were able to. I mean, 16 points headed into the fourth quarter, not great. And then you piled on 21 in the fourth to make it look really good. And I mean, I know Washington's defense is decent, but I just wish they would have done a lot more of what they did in week 2, spread the ball around a little bit more and put a little bit more consistent points on the board. Again, 16 through 3 quarters against Washington, even though your defense was dominating. I just wanted to see a little bit more from the offense like we saw in week 2.
Yeah, I mean, Cook is electric. Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs, 39% of the target share. Offensive line, I don't think we give them enough credit. Going into the season, we were kind of wondering what Spencer Brown was going to be last 2 games. He's been unbelievable. This defensive line for Washington was going into this game was unbelievable. Last week, you were able to limit what Max Crosby was able to do as well. You saw what he was able to do in that Pittsburgh game. It's just lighten up Kenny Pickett over and over, and you didn't see that against the Bills. So offensive line was really good. Diggs was really good. Cook was really good. This was not a Ken Dorsey game whatsoever. I didn't understand some of the play calls. The Raiders game, I thought he was perfect in. I loved that Raiders game. I thought it was a great game plan and game call from Ken Dorsey. This one was just not. And I think it kind of goes back to, you didn't really bring in another wide receiver 2. You were expecting Gabe Davis, healthy ankle, to take the next step. He hasn't really done that. He had a bad drop in this one. Again, I don't know how much of that is play design, how much of that is just Gabe Davis is not a wide receiver 2, which I've been saying for like 3 years now. But also, you brought in Dalton Kincaid. His snap count, I believe, has dropped all 3 games. Like, they're going away from the 12 personnel. He had 2 catches for 3 yards. If he's going to be what you brought him in to be that quote-unquote wide receiver, that secondary option in the receiver game, they just haven't been incorporating him at all. The Bills had 15 offensive first down plays in the first half on Sunday, Phil. Only 4 of them went for 4 or more yards. 8 of them went for positive yards. And in total, 17 times in this entire game, they had a 2nd and 8 or worse. That can't happen in this league. You were facing Washington. Yes, a mid-level team. They're sitting at 2-1. They were undefeated going into this game, but you can't do that against the likes of Kansas City, against the likes of even Cincinnati. I know Burrow is hurting right now. Against Baltimore, Miami, any of those teams. You do that against those teams, you're getting blown out of the water. The offense has to be better on first and second downs. I don't understand on 2nd and long why they run the ball. It never works. It's one of the worst play calls you can do, and I kept seeing it over and over and over in this game. This was not a Ken Dorsey game. I gave him a lot of praise last week, but this was a very bad Ken Dorsey game. Bad play calling, bad decision making. I think on the first drive, I think they scored a field goal on their first drive. They had 3 third and longs that they had to try to convert. They converted 3 of them, but you're not going to do that against some of the better defenses in the league. It's just it was a very ugly offensive game, and I guess they were I want to say lucky that they were facing the team they were, and the defense was playing as good as they were this game.
Yeah, I expect I don't know. I just wish they would go back to, like you said, what they did against the Raiders. I mean, pulled up that game real quick, and you just look at the receiving targets. And again, I have no problem with Diggs getting the amount of targets he did, but it's just outside of that, spreading it around. I mean, in that Las Vegas game, you had targets of 7, 7, 6, 5, and 4. And then in this game, you had 12, and then 4 was the next highest. There was just no spreading it around. There was no quick throws. Like you said, Kincaid and Knox completely wiped out in this game. Those are the players that you need to methodically move down the field, and that seemed to work extremely well for them against the Raiders. And then once again, 1 week later, and you just completely abandon that. And again, they won. It looks good, but to me, the offense needs to be much better. And I think it's frustrating. Like, if we had seen this 3 weeks in a row, I'd be concerned for one, but I think it'd be, I don't know, like, is this the team we're going to have? But seeing them play so well against the Raiders and kind of finally go back to that offense that we've been looking for since last season, and then to have them revert right back to what they did against the Jets, what they did all the second half of last year, it's just kind of frustrating and something they need to flip the script on right away headed into this next matchup.
Yeah, and that's a good transition for us. The Dolphins, they're next on the docket, 1 o'clock game. I know a bunch of people are complaining, no, this Miami Bills game should be primetime. No, it shouldn't. It should stay at the 1 o'clock window. I love it. Imagine you have to wait all week for this game. Imagine coming to Sunday and going, you got to wait till 8:20 to watch this game. You would go nuts. That's why 1 o'clock games on Sunday are perfect. You get to get the stress or the frustration out of the way, and then you get to enjoy the rest of your Sunday watching football. But the Dolphins did a thing on Sunday, Phil. They dropped 70 points on Denver, and usually going into the season, we're not really going to preview games, but this is probably one of their biggest games on the schedule right now. They're the only team with more than 10 touchdowns on the season. They have 17, and 10 of those came on Sunday. And they didn't have Waddle. I completely forgot they even didn't have Waddle. Achane, because he doesn't want to be called A-Chain anymore. Achane and Mostert just ran crazy in Denver. I know Denver kind of just phoned it in at halftime, but I guess, do you have any quick thoughts on the game going into Sunday? Because it is probably one of their biggest games on the schedule for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not scared, then I feel like you're not taking this game like it should be. I mean, this is going to be a scary game. I think any Bills fan that is realistic looks at this game as a very scary game for them. I mean, the Dolphins are coming in just as an extremely hot team in the league, 3-0, one of the only teams that are left undefeated. They look really good. Their defense can be beaten, but that offense, like you just mentioned, 70 points is just absolutely ridiculous. The amount of yards they racked up in that game were just pretty much college level numbers where you see those scores. You don't really see that in the NFL. And like you said, I know Denver kind of phoned it in, but at the same time, this team is very scary. I know they're going to Buffalo, which I think if you want to see these two teams, the first matchup after the Dolphins just did that to Denver, I think you want to see that game at home. I think it gives you a much better chance, a much better atmosphere. You don't want to be going to Florida after a game like that, but it's scary. It's going to be a scary game. I hope the Bills can pull it off. And I think either way, like for one team, this is going to be a defining moment, not only for the season, not only for the AFC East, because the Bills already dropped one of the Jets. So this is a very crucial divisional win that you need to put on the board. But at the same time, this is just a huge clash of two really good teams, and to see where they are this early in the season, I mean, whichever team comes out on top is going to be just considered the best team in the AFC East, no matter, which way it goes. If the Bills can come in and have a good game and beat the Dolphins, even if it's close, it kind of puts away that 70-point game in Denver, kind of brings them back down to earth. But if the Dolphins win this after putting up 70 points in Denver, it's going to be scary the rest of the way, trying to battle them for the AFC East. And in general, just a scary feeling. Scary game is the best way to put it. I'm excited for it. I think the Bills can do it. I'm not saying that the Dolphins, easily have the upper hand in this game by any means, but if the Bills put together a full team effort, especially with the way the Bills defense played in this last game, I think they needed that to roll into this game because their defense looks incredible. I think they're excited for the matchup. I think it's a game that the Bills can absolutely still win, but it's going to be tense, and it's going to be nerve-wracking pretty much probably the whole game in that one.
Yeah, the only thing I got to say is extend drives, make your third downs, and get off the field on third downs on defense. On Sunday, they were able to do that versus Washington. They were 9 for 15 on third downs, Buffalo was, and Washington was 1 for 9 on third downs. So if you can extend drives, don't get in second and third and longs again against Miami. It's not going to go well. And then get off the field. They were able to do that multiple times in their first matchup where everybody was having heat stroke down in Miami. This one's in Buffalo. No heat stroke. Should be a nice game on Sunday. But as long as you're extending drives, keeping that high-flying offense on the sidelines, again, there's an apology tour going around for Tua. I was wrong. He's actually a legit quarterback. I think he is benefiting from the Mike McDaniel system, but he's also a pretty darn good quarterback right now, and I hate to admit that. It stinks, Phil. It stinks. Mike McDaniel and Tua are dangerous combination. And then you add Hill, you add a chain, you add Mostert, you add Waddle to all that. This team's just super fast. So if you can contain them, get off the field, it will be interesting if Kyrie Elam is healthy in this one because he does have some speed and he played very well last time they faced Miami, including one of those big interceptions. But we will cover that game on next episode because it's going to be a fun, high-flying, very high-scoring affair. Take the over, Phil. Definitely take the over. So we'll move on. We will talk about the Sabres right now. Yes, Sabres are back in action. This game wasn't televised. I wasn't really able to watch it, but I saw some highlights on it. So mind you, going in, actually their preseason game going on right now. It's 2-0. They just had a goal, and it looks like Yuri Kulik was the one that scored the second one. Skinner had the first one, but talking about the game versus Washington, they won in a shootout because there's no overtime in preseason. They won 4-3. Peterka, Krebs, and Benson had the goals in regulation. Peterka and Byro had it in the shootout. Comrie played the first and second periods, 19 of 21 saves. Tokarski finished the third, 10 of 11. Phil, any quick thoughts on the game?
I think the young guns are looking decent, like you said. Also, watch the highlights of this one. It looks like they're fast, they're fun. Peterka, I think, he looks more comfortable in this group. I think he's just starting to look a little bit more like a veteran already. I think he's just settling into his role quite a bit. Benson looks as advertised and really good. I think he's going to be pushing pretty early for a spot. I don't think it's going to be right away by any means. I don't know if it even can be right away, but
it can. But yeah, I don't think he's going to.
Yeah, I don't think so. But to see him look this good this early in his career, already kind of against, again, I mean, it's preseason. I was going to ask you in general, preseason hockey, you follow hockey closer than I have in my history of watching sports. I love the Sabres, follow them, but you watch it really closely. Is preseason hockey very similar? I mean, from what we saw, it looks very similar, but is it very similar to NFL preseason where it's a lot of the young guys you just grab, not really the veterans playing all that much? It's more just, seeing who can possibly push for a roster spot, not necessarily getting your starters out there and playing hard and trying to win, per se.
So they'll play the full game. It's not like, well, besides the goalies usually get pulled after the first or the second period. But the skaters themselves, they usually play the full games. Sometimes their lines get chopped as the game goes on, all that kind of stuff, like load management type of game performances. But the first few games, you'll see a lot of players that are not going to make the team. They're going to go down to juniors. They're going to go down to the AHL because I believe the AHL training camp starts relatively soon as well. So a lot of guys that are destined for the AHL team, they'll get sent down to make room for the guys that are actually going to be here. Then you'll see, like, maybe the last couple games, you'll see the lines start gelling a bit more. But, I mean, they're still hitting because a lot of these guys, want to make a name for themselves and put their name on the map. So you got to be careful what you do there. But, I mean, it's a game. There's hits, there's goals, there's stuff like that. It's a lot different than football because you can kind of, okay, I'm not having my quarterback get hit. He's just going to drop down. So it's a lot more physical, but it's yeah, I still hate preseason, regardless of what it is. I don't think it's that important. I think with a 82 game schedule like this, if it takes you a game or two to get going, that's fine. Rather than play in regular season meaningful games than possibly get hurt in the preseason. But to just go on this one, Ryan Johnson, first professional hockey game, 5 block shots, 1 assist +2. I like that one. Paterka, like you mentioned, he might be the new 20 goal man now that Quinn's going to be missing some time. I really like his game. I believe in the Worlds he was like the MVP or something. I got to check that back because that was a while ago. But again, like Benson, getting some run with the top line, I really like that. I don't think he's anywhere close to making the team yet, but he's making a name for himself, and I absolutely love it.
So I was going to ask because of he set a historic record at the Worlds. I have to click on it to look into it. This is where having the producer right now would be very helpful in the background. He had 12 points. I don't know what else he did. I don't know. But I was going to ask you if you thought, and I just looked it up to see if he was playing, that Levi should be playing.
Yeah, he's playing
preseason in general. He is playing tonight. He's looking. I mean, he's got nothing against, so it sounds good. But with him having such a limited experience, I was going to ask, do you think it's good for a player like him to still be playing in preseason because he is still so fresh to the NHL in general? Like, do you think it's good for him just to get out there, get back into it, and just even in general just get some experience? Again, I know it sounds really weird because he has played really competitive, impressive NHL games that meant a ton to the Sabre season, so he's not coming in completely brand new, but it hasn't been a lot of games. So do you think something like that would benefit him as far as preseason goes? Like, obviously he is playing, but as someone who doesn't like preseason, doesn't like their players getting injured, do you think that he should be playing, I guess is the question.
As someone who never got past the high school level, has never played professionally, no. Preseason's stupid regardless of the sport. None of your full-time players should play in it. And this is, again, a guy who's never played above that level. So I don't know if they actually want it or need it, or if it's just like, hey, anytime you're on the ice, it's good practice. No, I don't want any of my full-time players that I'm counting on for the regular season to play in any meaningless games. So nope. I think he got what he needed to last year. He can get what he needs to in practice, and he definitely will get what he needs to when they start the regular season in October. I don't want an AHL player coming down with a full head of steam trying to make a name for himself, getting wiped out and crashing into Levi. He tears his knee and he's out for the year. There goes your season in a meaningless game. Get your regular star players out of preseason. Preseason is stupid regardless of the sport. I will stand by that till I die.
All right. Fair enough. Paterka had the highest number of points scored in a single tournament on Team Germany, and it was a record that stood for over 90 years. So that's all he was doing in the offseason. Not a big deal whatsoever.
Yeah, he's pretty good. But Phil, I don't know if you have it handy right now, but if anybody was on social media, and I think a lot of people are, you saw the welcome back to the camp posters that all the Buffalo Sabres did. So me and Phil did it. I'm holding mine up to the video right now. I don't know if you can read it. I took a picture, so I'll put it on social media. But we edited it a bit, so I can run through mine first. I'll hold it up the best I can. My name is PK. This is my third year Sabres coverage. My favorite 2023 offseason memory was the Buffalo Bandits playoff run and the eventual title. Coffee or tea? No mud water for me, please. So I'm good. I don't want either. My co-host calls me PK, or probably stupid or idiot. You might not say it to my face, but he's probably thinking it a lot. And then I'm most excited for the playoff run / coverage of playoff Sabres hockey, ? If they do make it.
All right, so I have mine in front of me. Do you remember, I'm going to try to make this quick for people who don't watch How I Met Your Mother. Do you remember in How I Met Your Mother when they said big board, big luck for their March Madness?
Yes.
Okay, well, I have a very big whiteboard in front of me that Ashley helped me put together because my handwriting is terrible. But I said, my name's Phil, which it is, and this is my second year in coverage of the team. Again, also really hard to see this. What else did we do? Off-season memory for me. I got engaged this off-season, so that was very exciting. For coffee or tea, I said pretty similar to you. I had pop written down because I also crossed out coffee and tea. Don't drink either of those. My co-host calls me, Phil. I was trying to think that we really don't have nicknames for each other.
I call you Philium every once in a while for whatever reason.
That is true. That is true. That's one I probably should have remembered. For you, I was like, I don't know. I just call him PK. The other words do come to mind when I'm editing things that you have written, whether it's notes or sometimes just things you say on the podcast. And then without us going over this together at all, I also had that I am excited for playoffs. So we're both pumped for playoffs, apparently.
It's been a long time.
Again, big board, big luck, so put it on the board. They're going to playoffs.
Yeah, for those that are watching on YouTube, which I highly encourage because I've gone back and watched some of them, and I make facial expressions that I never knew I made, and I didn't know my face could bend that way. So if you can withstand seeing my face on the screen, I also do my little whiteboard messages to start. But yeah, if you can't read it on the YouTube videos, we got photos up on social media.
Yeah, it was really hard to get that big board in the camera.
Yeah, they'll be up soon. So that's our Buffalo Sabres. Welcome back to our coverage. It's going to be another fun year. Hopefully it ends in a playoff run. But Phil, we'll move on to Fantasy Blitz. This has not been our year so far, both in Fantasy Blitz and in our fantasy leagues. We're both surviving in Guillotine, and we're both winless in my brother's league that we really do care about, and we're both 0-3 after leading the league in career winning percentage for the longest time. We're slowly dipping back to that. But to go back to Fantasy Blitz, because I don't want to dwell on the bad times that we're having right now, I picked Jordan Addison last week. He was ranked 40th. He finished 44th. You had Hunter Henry, who was the 16th ranked tight end going into that week. He finished 28th. So, Phil, week 4 is going to be our week. Let's bounce back. Who you got?
I'm going with someone who has been great so far. I think he is 13th maybe in running back on the year. So he's so far averaging inside what we're looking for, but he's still ranked 32nd. That is Zach Moss, the Buffalo Bills' old buddy, old pal. In week 2, he did not play in week 1, coming back from that broken arm. In week 2, he put up 20.7 PPR points, 18 rush attempts, 4 catches, and a touchdown. In week 23. He put up 23.5, beat his 20.7 with 30 rush attempts, which is just ridiculous. 2 catches and a touchdown against Baltimore. Baltimore has a very good run defense. He ran over 100 yards in that game. He said, I don't care. The Colts are an interesting offense, but so far they are just absolutely feeding Zach Moss as much as he can possibly handle. They are going up against the Rams, and the Baltimore defense is much scarier than the Rams defense, especially more recently. And I believe Taylor is not back this week. I think he is back possibly next week, depending on what goes on with everything going on with him. Who knows if he'll actually return or not. No idea, but this might be your last big week to get some Zach Moss, big touchdowns and big points. I don't know how he's doing, what he's doing, but they are feeding him an insane amount. So get him in your lineup, and I think he will finish exactly where he's been finishing the last 2 weeks.
I said this 2 episodes ago. Phil is a confirmed Indianapolis Colts lover.
Yeah, but I want one of their running backs to hit when I pick them. I mean, Deion Jackson's not even on the team anymore, so Zach Moss, you had a good run, but in 2 weeks you will also no longer be on the Colts. I'm sorry, but that's just how it's going to go down.
Yeah, Deion Jackson week 1, Michael Pittman week 2, Zach Moss week 3. So let's see what happens.
One of them has to hit.
I mean, you got close with. Actually, you didn't get close with any of them. All of them.
They've all been terrible. But this is it.
This is the week. I am also going to do it this week. Adam, Old Man Thielen. He's currently ranked 30th on the week. Not only did he have a very good game last week, not only is he having a very good season so far, he's a 10th ranked wide receiver, which is unbelievable. Phil, it's revenge game. He left Minnesota. He signed with Carolina. He's back playing Minnesota this week. He is also with Andy Dalton because I don't think Bryce Young is going to be back. This last week, he was 11 receptions on 14 targets for 145 yards and 1 touchdown versus New Orleans the week before. 7 of 9 for 54 and a touchdown. Last week, Minnesota, they faced the Chargers. Allen just went 18 on 20 targets for 215 yards. Williams, 7 of 8. For 121 and 1 touchdown before he tore his ACL. And then Palmer, who was a third wide receiver, 4 of 7 for 66 and 1. They just lit it up versus Philly. Minnesota gave up Smith 4 for 5 for 131 and 1. And then in week 1 versus Tampa Bay, Evans just had 6 for 66 and 1. Godwin 5 for 51. Minnesota's susceptible. They're going to have to play catch up. I'm very big fan of Adam Thielen for at least this week and maybe a couple other weeks. And Old Man Thielen, he's going to get it done once again for me and for fantasy.
Yeah, he's doing it. He's doing it. And Dalton, I think Dalton really is leaning on him because Dalton's also an old man, and they're old men together. And their old men club, their cigar club, they are hanging out, and once they get on that field, they're like, hey, we're both veterans, let's play together and forget these young guys. I mean, I almost picked up, I didn't, and I'm happy I didn't because who knows what he's going to be now, but Mingo, who you've been pretty high on for Carolina, I almost went and picked him up. He was starting to, I don't know, make some moves a little bit. He had a lot of routes run, and then Dalton comes out there and says, I don't want to pass to anyone younger than 30, so Adam Thielen, you're my guy. Let's do this. And did they win that game? They lost. They got crushed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Mingo
they're trying, I guess.
So come back for next week when hopefully both of us are inside what we're aiming for, and maybe we both have a win.
I don't think so.
And both alive and guillotine. I don't know. Let's just hope. It's been a bad season. I have 2 titles, so this season's just blah for me. But I am. I'm trying to push it in the wound. But we will move on to our final segment here. This is our biggest one, so we're gonna cram it all in. Phil, I didn't want to say it last episode, but I got to say it again this episode. Buffalo Bandits signed 2 of their 2023 draft class picks already. Second rounder, goaltender, Evan Constantopoulos. That's what I'm going with.
I think you're adding too many N's to the end of that one.
I think I am as well. Constantopoulos.
I think it's just Topoulos or Topoulos. Yeah, Constantopoulos.
Sure. Evan C. We went Nate K. Evan C.
I think you're going Constantinople is what you're thinking.
That's what I want to say.
Evan Constantinople.
I hope when he dons a Buffalo Bandits jersey, Swaney just starts singing that song.
That's
I'm
fair.
pretty sure it's a song.
That's it. Yes,
That'd be
it
great.
is. Yes,
That would be great. But they also signed fifth rounder Duncan Carte. He's also a defender. Both of those guys, I didn't see this team actually signing. Again, they're so hard to get this kind of coverage, but I really thought they were either going to go to a school or just not sign with the team and go on that draft list. But it is just more competition. This team now has 7 rookies on the team coming into training camp. And I put it on Twitter when these guys signed. And I think I put it in the last episode as well. Just wish there was some type of red shirt list where if you don't make the team, you can just get red shirted for the full season. I know there's practice squad. I know there's 4 spots for a practice squad. But with the loaded team they have right now and 7 rookies on this team, you're just going to lose some players because there's just not enough room. And I know this happens in every sport. I understand that. But with a league that's got 15 teams and just so many good players, so many of these players, this might be their only opportunity to make it in this league. And just coming into camp for like a month and then pretty much getting cut, your career and your dream is over. So I just wish there was like a red shirt where you can stay with the team, you can develop the team. I know there's other leagues around that you can work on, and there's summer ball and all that kind of stuff, but nothing really competes and compares to being in the NLL, around the players, around the best talent in the league. I just wish there was a red shirt where you could still practice with the team. You can't go to practice squad. You can never play on the team for that year. It's just you're redshirting the entire year. It's just for training. It's just to get ready for the following season for you to try it again. I wish there was something, even just a drop below the practice squad that these guys could go to, because of the 7 rookies, they're not all going to make it. And for a lot of these guys, it's like, I'm not saying it's the end of the line, but it's hard to dig out once you get cut after your first deal.
Yeah, I think at some point, probably looking at the date, not for a little bit yet, but when we go through kind of our own roster construction, we'll see how it kind of all shakes out, but a lot of these rookies, like you said, are going to get cut. I think Carte is going to make an interesting push. I think he's one of the players that is potentially NLL ready, but again, the Bandits are just beyond loaded. I think one of the bigger points you made for that last part is there's only 15 teams. Like, that is the bigger part about these teams, and there's just so much talent, and it can only be squished into 15 teams. A lot of these other leagues have either sub-leagues like college for football, or the NHL has 9,000 little leagues below it that these players can go to and develop, or the practice squad for the NFL is massive. Those teams are ridiculously massive, and even that is spread across 30-plus teams. So with these teams being smaller to begin with, because they don't need to be 50-plus personnel, there's just no reason for it, obviously, but with these teams already being a smaller sport kind of team, like an NHL roster, but without having that farm system, it'd be nice if the practice squad was extended, because there's so much talent coming to this league every single year that gets crammed onto 15 teams. It's not just for the Bandits. Like, yes, it is for the Bandits because their team is loaded and there's not many, if any, roster spots. I mean, yes, there's going to be some camp battles and people on the bubble are going to be fighting hard, but there's not a ton of open starting spots available. But for even these other teams, like every team out there for the most part, I mean, a lot of these players aren't going to make these teams. And then, like you said, there's just nowhere for them to really go. I mean, even the Bandits, again, I really want to look at it probably sooner than later, what the Bandits roster currently would look like with their practice squad already kind of probably full-ish, even without 7 rookies coming in, and especially the goalie Evan C., or Constantinople. We'll figure out which one we want to go with. I mean, he's 19 years old. He's going to be arguably the 4th goalie on the team. I mean, what shot does he have of making this team or being put on the practice squad when you just got a goalie in a trade? You still have Shanahan, who you just signed, who we'll talk about in a moment, and then you have Vince for 2 more years. Like, he's your 4th goalie added to this active roster kind of construction for the off season. What is he possibly going to do? Like, I know he might be good, and I'm excited to have him in the system, but is he really going to beat out Shanahan? I doubt it. So, like, what does he become on this team? It's just, I don't know. Like you said, I wish the practice squad was extended by quite a bit to, or like you said, redshirt some of these rookies to get them in the system, get them practicing, get them with the team, allow them to practice with the team as just, a secondary squad. And then you get 1 year to look at them fully before you have to make that decision. And maybe in that full year with the team, they can try to, push a spot the following year. And again, a lot of it also comes down to money. The NLL doesn't have a lot of it. So trying to pay these, practice squad, redshirt freshman type players, if they either have to be paid very little if they're going to be on the team, or like you said, if it's just a straight red shirt, nothing, and then you get a shot the next season to try to really make that roster.
Yeah, it's complicated, but welcome to my side, and that's why
agree.
We don't make any money, and the people that do should just be contemplating this. Evan Konstantopoulos.
Did I get it? Nailed it. I think that was it.
Okay, there. I had to get it once. Now I'm going to call him Constantinople the rest of the time. But the other guy that you mentioned, Delvin Shanahan, he also agreed to a 1 year deal. He needed a new contract again. He's not at the point where he is eligible to be an RFA because I don't believe he has enough games played. I believe he's got enough years. Let me double check because I don't want to misquote myself. Going through this, I was already all the way back on fantasy and I didn't scroll back for you, Phil. There we go. Delvin Shanahan is right here. Yes, he's played 3 seasons but only 24 career games. I believe, let me cross over. Oh, nope.
So many Excel spreadsheets flying around right now. I can only imagine what your screen looks like.
But he needed a new deal. I'll just put it at that. He needed a new deal. He got the new deal. I really like what he's been able to develop into behind Matt Vince and being coached by Dietrich and being coached by Anthony Cosmo. Behind Mad Vince, you brought in Steve Orelman. It's going to be a battle in camp. Orelman, I also believe, needs a new deal as well, but it's just another guy in camp. That goalie battle is just going to be as, deep and frustrating to watch, like the forward group and the defense group and the transition group. It's just going to be a lot of camp battles this year, and I'm excited to see it. But Phil, the last news before we get into the major news of the NLL, Latrell Harris. He is out for the year after having surgery to repair a torn ACL. He just won Defensive Player of the Year last year. 10 goals, 20 assists, 30 points, 108 loose balls, 24 caused turnovers, and 10 blocked shots with the Toronto Rock. This is a huge, huge loss to that team. He was always a threat in the transition game. He was always a threat on the back end. Phil, this is going to be a major loss for a team that last year signed Chris Corbeil, didn't really play until the end of the season. He's done the whole year. Latrell Harris is a major loss to Toronto's run to try to capture a title that has been just out of their grasp recently.
So is this, and I could be remembering this wrong, I don't think I am, is this you're on Toronto win Defensive Player of the Year curse between him and Desneux?
Desneux got hurt last year too, right?
Yeah, I think Desneux, didn't Desneux win it and then he was out for a year?
No, he played a lot last year, but he did win it. And then last year he did get hurt quite for 10 games, I think it was.
He was out for a while. Now Latrell Harris wins it and now he's gone for the year. You can't be with Toronto and win it. It's you're going to get injured, essentially, is what comes down.
Don't sign with Toronto. That's what I'm hearing.
But overall, that is a massive loss to that team. That team is pushing extremely hard, obviously, to win the title. I know that's not a newsflash by any means, but they are pushing harder than I think we've seen in recent years. I think they feel they are extremely close. I think we here would agree that it's going to be quite a battle between them and Buffalo and whoever else in the entire league, which we'll get to in a second, but I think Toronto's going to be very good, and for them fighting and pushing as hard as they are, Latrell Harris is a massive loss. Obviously, anytime you lose a player of that caliber, especially the Defensive Player of the Year, it is a major loss to a team. So I think they have the depth to recover from it, but either way, it's still just a major loss to that team.
So we'll move on to the major news that broke in the NLL this day on Tuesday at noon. It was rumored, and then it was confirmed at noon today by the NLL. Major shakeups. Not only do you get the full 2023-2024 season that got released, or schedule that got released this on Tuesday here, That's why we delayed recording from our usual Monday night to Tuesday, because we wanted to cover this and we didn't want to wait a whole week, blah, blah, blah. It's all the behind-the-scenes nonsense that you don't really care about. But we'll go over the real quick here. This is going to be my only negative of this. I don't understand why some teams can do so great at social marketing and social media and marketing like that. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of the 15 teams did some sort of fun little 3 to 5 second or 3 to 5 minute video releasing the schedule. Rochester did it, where the organization, the front office guys and girls were doing like rhymes with who they were facing. Halifax had fans draw the logos of who they were going to be facing. Philly did a little mascot video where the mascot made it, and it was like, for the Firewolves, it was fire and then a picture of the Wolves, and combined it was the Firewolves. Albany and Toronto, they did that thing where they showed the picture of the logo to fans, and the fans just trying to guess what team it was based on the logo. That one was funny. It was one of my favorite ones. Calgary just had a bunch of kids take the pictures of the logos and paste them on the wall where they thought that the games were going to be played, quote unquote. Saskatchewan had a drone go around the city. New York had that the wing fire eating thing where they were having I think it was Riley O'Connor and Kieran. I can't remember his first name. I don't know why I remember his first name, but I'll look in a second. They did the hot wing challenge where they were eating that, and they were talking about the schedule release. And then just now, Vegas, a couple hours ago, they were making fun of all the teams that were coming in, like, Buffalo Bandits, you might have won the title, but you still got to live in Buffalo, those kind of things. So just fun little videos. And then the knock on the teams that didn't, and I'm going to put you on blast here. Buffalo Bandits, just a picture of the schedule. Colorado, same thing. Panther City, Georgia, San Diego, all of them just put out a little picture of their schedule. No effort put in whatsoever. 2 thumbs down, you fail this grade. Vancouver, you also fail, because not only did you not do a video, you waited until 12:47 to put out your schedule when everybody else released at noon. I don't know what happened in Vancouver, and it's not that you were in a different time zone, because there were a lot of other people that are in the Pacific time zone did it. And in Vegas, you didn't put out yours until 12:30. So 2 of the 15 teams were delayed, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 15 teams just didn't even put any effort into it. Just 2 thumbs down. Get better marketing, get better social media people, because thumbs down, this is my only negative portion of it. You had how long to do it? Just make a fun little 30-second video of it. It could have been, I just love when players get involved. That's why I really like New York. It's just very little effort for those teams, and I don't appreciate it, especially because we cover the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, I mean, no offense, but you put in more effort to our guillotine yearly league draft, and that's 18 teams you have to announce where they're drafting, and you put a lot of you've done a video every single year that we have had the league, and you put a lot of solid effort into it, more than people getting paid to put the effort in are giving. So yeah, I haven't had a chance. My work schedule has been insane this week, so I haven't had a chance to watch any of these, but I will as soon as I can, because I do find them a lot of fun, even when, again, like you said, they're not our organization. They're still really entertaining to watch, and it's, again, a little bit depressing when I feel like Buffalo has dropped the ball on this kind of thing more often than not, and seeing Rochester, who, is owned by the same people, why one organization that is just down the road can make a fun video to release a schedule, and one seemingly more professional, arguably, I would guess the same kind of money because they're both owned by the same people, but it would seem like Buffalo should be the leader of this kind of thing. They have the NHL behind them. They have the powerhouse behind them. They have, they're just a lot bigger of a team that just won the championship than all these other teams, and just coming off of a championship victory in general, you could have had a lot of fun with this schedule. Even if you did something as goofy as like naming every single team they're playing and just consistently saying like, oh, didn't win the championship last year, and just do that for every single one. It's just something. Just give us something other than the picture. The picture's nice. It's good to have the schedule out there, which we can discuss now, but yeah, I don't know. Just lacking from, again, we're upset because we care.
It's just entertainment, and that's part of the game you're in. So just be
It's
better.
a big part
I've
of the
said
game
this
you're in.
Yeah, this is going into our third year of covering the team. I've said it every year. Just be better social media. It's not the whole team. It's not the front office. It's not just who was ever running the social media and the marketing part of it. Just be better, please. I've been begging for years now. Just something. A little effort. That's all we're asking for. Just a little effort. Could have been a 30-second fun video like you said. Like, hey, Albany, facing you week 1. You win the title. No, didn't think so. We did. Simple. Funny. Boom. Just like that.
Done.
But we'll move on.
Nailed it.
Like I said, that's my only negative comment about this whole thing. Unified standings, Phil. That is a common saying going around now. Because that means there's one division, one conference, one league, all 15 teams. The East and the West, they used to be, are no longer. They are all together. They are all blended. Everyone plays one another one time plus 4 times you're going to be facing a team a second time. For the Buffalo Bandits, we'll go over it really quick because we're going to go over in the schedule. They're facing Albany, Toronto, Rochester, and Colorado a second time. So everybody else they're facing one other time. The top 8 teams will be making the playoffs. That means the number 1 seed will be facing the number 8 seed. The number 4 seed will be facing the number 5 seed. That's on one side. The winners move on to face each other. So if 1 beats 8 and 4 beats 5, 1 faces 4. 3 versus 6, 2 versus 7 on the other side. There's no reseeding. Scott Loeffler just confirmed that for us. That means what I mean by reseeding for a bunch of people, and I know you asked as well, if the number 1 seed beats the number 8 seed, and the number 7 seed upsets the number 2 seed. If you were to reseed, the number 1 seed would face the number 7 seed. But because we're not doing that, it's just the 1, 8, 4, 5 are on one side, 3, 6, 2, 7 are on the other. So there is a chance that the number 1 seed faces the number 2 seed in the finals. It's just another blended way of doing that. So the playoff system is the same. Quarterfinals are going to be 1 game, 1 and done. Semis are the best of 3, and the finals are best of 3. So, Phil, with all that said, the playoffs format are the same, but the top 8 teams make it now. It's about the same as it was last year, but I think the year before that as well, where I think you got your top 8 teams in regardless of East-West. But that's gone. All one league. Playoffs top 8. Quarters 1 game, semis 3, finals 3. What are your thoughts on this major shakeup and the first time in the NLL history of the sport that it's just been one full league of just a log jam of teams now?
It's going to be very difficult to get used to because even as we were
Agreed.
as I was looking at our schedule, I was like, oh man, playing a lot of West Coast teams. That's interesting. I was like, oh, right, there's no West. And I was just kind of mentally thinking like, all right, you're playing the West. Those games don't mean as much. They're still important to the schedule. I was like, oh, okay, that doesn't mean anything anymore. The only concern I have with the unified standing is not really internally. I don't care about it as much either way. I like that, one side, like the East, had more teams than the West. I'm happy that is gone because that made things complicated and weird for playoffs when you've talked about it a lot. The wild cards were a little bit shaky and how that was seeded as well. So I like that that's gone. But from a growing the NLL standpoint, if you're not a fan of the league and you look from the outside in, I think it looks less professional to have one unified standing and not divisions. I think it just looks kind of messy and amateur-ish, and I feel bad saying that because I love the league and I really don't mind personally them going to this system, but I think, again, professionally trying to make this league take another step forward, I think I would have preferred 3 divisions of 5 teams each, not unified, because again, I don't know, it feels weird to say, but from just an outsider point of view looking at the NLL, if you just go in, you just go to look at the league and see one massive division, one massive standings, it looks very weird. And I get there's only 15 teams, whereas other sports have 30 plus, so they can do, 15 and 15 or whatever the heck they want to do. They have more leeway with that because they have a lot more teams. So only having 15, I get the idea of this. And I really, again, internally don't mind it. Externally, I think it looks weird for a new fan to see no divisions, no East-West, just everybody fighting for playoffs. But it does make it very interesting. I love the fact that they're all playing each other at least once. I think that is great. I think it's great. What is the word? Oh my gosh, idea. I'm thinking like exploration. That's not what I'm looking for at all.
Expansion?
Exposure. There it is. Exposure for the league. It is, I think, really good to see all the teams playing everybody. It just, again, exposes every single market to every style of team. I think that's really great. I don't know how much I love... man, again, I get the idea, and I like the idea of the rival games, but I think it's also a little bit unfair because the rival teams...
Before we get in, I did see, I think it was Scott Loeffler also put that the league does have some type of formula to determine who is the teams that you're going to be facing a second time. I think the league itself is kind of just playing up the quote-unquote rivalry factor of it, although when you're looking at the Bandits, Rochester,
seems pretty rivalry.
Colorado seems pretty rivalry, I know. So I think that they're...
The way they explained it in their like press release, I guess I would put it this way. I hope that that's, like you said, if they have some kind of actual system-ish, I will prefer that. I think
they just fluffed it up.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. If they do behind the scenes have a different way to do it, that's fine, and I have no problem with them fluffing it. I mean, again, Colorado and Toronto, it seems about as rivalry as you could possibly get in the NLL. Arguably two of the biggest in the NLL right now. Which, if they're going to switch to this system, I think that's kind of how you would want to play that up as much as possible for that. But so yeah, I hope that there is some kind of system and not them just picking like, oh, you guys are rivals, play each other again, because I think for the Bandits, that's pretty unfair to have to play Toronto, who was really close to being the best in the East, and then Colorado, who was really close to being the best in the entire league, again, just because they are your rivals. But I've talked enough. Let's get your thoughts on all this going down.
So I agree, and that's what I was struggling with when these rumors came out, and then it was confirmed today, and the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I was like, I don't really care what other people think. So I get your concern with an outsider's perspective of just seeing 15 teams lumped together in one conference. I completely get that, and I think that was my biggest knock on it. But if I'm looking away from that, I absolutely love this idea now. I've come full circle on it. I think it's, you were kind of hinting at, I think it's a great way for fans of other teams to better learn about the stars of this game. I mean, Buffalo has never faced Vegas. They've never faced Panther City. When was the last time they faced Vancouver? So the fan base is here that even the diehard Buffalo Bandits fans, they might not be watching the West Coast games because they're not that concerned about it, and they'll deal with that when Buffalo makes the final for the fourth straight time. But doing it this way where every team faces one another, absolutely love it. I think that's a great way to grow the game and grow deeper roots of fandom for it too, because you're going to become fans of other teams. I mean, Jeff Teat's going to go to Vancouver. He's going to go to San Diego. He's going to go all over the country now, and everybody's going to learn the name Jeff Teat. Dane Smith, Matt Vince, Josh Byrne, all the hometown guys here are going to do the same thing. I personally was, like I said, after the rumors were out, I was a bit skeptical of the one division. I kind of like the idea of 3 divisions of 5. Everyone plays one time against everybody in the entire league, and then you face your division mates a second time. And then the division winners are your top 3 seeds, and then the next best 5 teams make the playoffs. But I'm coming around on the idea. I said I like the one big pot one. Every single game now is going to be that much more important because you're not just battling like 4 other teams to be the best. You're battling 14 other teams to be the best. This is going to keep teams locked into playoff races for a much longer time because the teams like Albany and New York and Georgia, even Georgia in the beginning of the season, they were so far down in the East that they were never going to be making the top 4 spots in the East. It wasn't going to happen. But now, a 8-8 record, or I'm sorry, a 9-9 record could get you into that 8th spot. A 7-9 record could get you into that 8th spot. So teams are going to be battling into March, into April, trying to battle it out to make the playoffs. And just think, like, what it is with football, where it's three team race to get that final spot. That's what it's going to be in the final week of the season for teams around the NLL. So I'm actually loving this idea now. I've come full circle now. I think you can tell by my excitement with this. I just think this is this is one of the biggest steps forward that I think the league has made to kind of grow the game and further, like I said already, deep the roots of the fandom for the fans that are already here. You're kind of keeping those fans and growing their fandom, but you're also bringing in more fans from teams just locally that might just be, hey, I'll go see a Buffalo Bandits game, and then they come in and they see a team like Colorado, and Zed Williams is lighting up the scoreboard. You're going to become fans of his as well. So I think this is a great way of not just growing the game, but also growing the stars of the game as well.
So, first off, we don't need to be bringing up Zed Williams on a positive show here. Come on.
Well, he lost the Buffalo Bandits, so suck it.
Something I was just thinking about that matters a lot for the Bandits because they are incredible and will hopefully be going to 4 straight finals. With this unified system, what do we have for winners? There's no more congratulations, you won the East. There's no more East Division
like,
title.
Hockey, where it's like the President's Trophy.
I would say, so for the season be President's Trophy, for the championship, is it just gone? There's just no congratulations, like you made it, but there's no more, you know what I'm saying? There's no more like award. I mean, which again, you don't need a pat on the back for getting the championship, even though it's nice, and we like a lot of different T-shirt designs. So I like T-shirts and possibly having East Division titles on it. But
I'm confused what you mean by championship.
Like when the Bandits in playoffs, when they win the East, it says you won the East. Congratulations on going to the championship. That's gone.
That's gone.
There's nothing. There's just champion.
You just gotta either win the league or win the championship title. I guess there's only 2 options.
So there's hopefully they do some kind of President's Trophy. I think that'd be nice. I mean, it might be
rename it not Presidents, but something else.
Yeah.
But yes.
PK and Phil Trophy.
Yeah.
Because we just came up with the idea right now. So I think that'd be nice if they did some kind of season winner banner or title of some sort. And I don't know if it'll be this year, but hopefully if they stick with this system, they have something for that. But yeah, it's going to be weird not having, again, you don't necessarily need the pat on the back, but it's going to be weird not having a East or West championship winner. You're just going to have to win it all in playoffs.
Agreed. So this is going to be a season-long thing that we're still dissecting. It's going to be a lot more fun to go over the entirety of the league.
Everyone matters now.
Every single game matters now. Where you used to be able to kind of just ignore the West if you were just like a stay-at-home fan, but now you and I have a lot of scouting to do now, Phil, because the team's facing everybody. It's going to be a very fun season, and it's another way, like I said, to grow more fandom. But we'll go into the Buffalo Bandits schedule now here. I'm not going to go through the whole schedule because it's out there. I'm just going to go over some key components of this. We already mentioned it. Albany, Toronto, Rochester, and Colorado 2 times each. There's 3 bye weeks built into this, but one of them is week 1 of the season. So while a bunch of other teams are facing, Buffalo waits until the 9th to start their season in Albany. 3 of the first 4 games and 5 of the first 8 are home games. And then on the reverse side of that, 4 of the final 5 games are on the road. There's 3 home Friday games. There's 6 home Saturday games. There's 7 total Friday games in general, 11 Saturday games. There's a 1 o'clock game in Philly. There's 2 10 o'clock games, 1 in Vancouver and 1 in Las Vegas. And this is also the first ever matchups between Buffalo versus Vegas and Buffalo versus Panther City. So I know there was a lot of numbers in there, Phil, but I guess just looking at a snippet of the actual schedule, are there anything that really stands out to you that you like or don't like?
2 big things I don't like. The Friday home games, which you and I have never been a fan of,
Hate 'em.
and once again, not a fan of them. I know the NLL, again, we can talk about this forever. The NLL is just not going to be a priority at arenas. Now trying to schedule the entire league to play everybody once. I'm sure scheduling got very complicated and tough as you see a 1 p.m. game. I mean, it's just a lot of weird scheduling is probably going to happen throughout the entire NLL, trying to have all of these teams play each other at least once. It's just not easy for the NLL to pull off, and I'm happy that they are doing it. Really happy with what the direction they're going, but it just makes it tough for some of these games. Again, 3 Friday, I'm not thrilled with. 6 Saturday is fine. The other thing that just really jumps out to me when I was first looking at this was the first half of their season is really kind of cushy and nice in the fact that they are playing in the Northeast for 90% of it, and it's looking good. And then the second half of that season is brutal. You just, especially just the end of it. I mean, yes, you go to Vancouver, then you're home and home, which is fine, but then away for 3, and not only away for 3, those last 3 games, away at Colorado, going all the way back home from the West Coast to Calgary to play at home, and then back out to Vegas. I mean, yes, that Calgary game is nice to have home, but at the same time, you're going West Coast, East Coast, West Coast to finish that, and that's with 2 on the road before you even get to Colorado. The end of that season, even the home against Toronto, like, yes, it's home, but it's against Toronto. From Toronto down, those last, 6 games look rough. It looks like a very, very tough end to their schedule where, again, it's on the other side of it, your entire beginning schedule for the first half and then maybe a little bit more is all pretty much Northeast games, which is fantastic, but the end of that schedule looks brutal for travel.
Yeah, it's going to be very important for the team to get out to a hot start just because of how tough that end's going to be. And I know they've done it before. They had I think it was 2 years ago, 3 games in like 8 days or something like that, where they had that weird Thursday and then they had a Saturday game too as well. So they're not, strangers to this kind of thing. But yeah, 4 of the last 5 games on a road trip. And I'm glad you pointed that out where it's, got to travel to Colorado on a Friday, back home for Calgary on that Saturday, and then back out to Las Vegas. So that's a lot of travel for these guys to do. But the one benefit that does stand out, so we can end on a positive here, is the season is shortened a bit. So usually it goes through April, and then the first game of the playoffs starts in May. It looks like, and there's nothing to confirm this, this is just my wild guess, and I guess it's not that bad of a guess because I did guess when the home opener was going to be, which wasn't that difficult. But I think the first game of the playoffs is going to be that last week in April, so it looks like they shorten the season by a week to try to eliminate any type of crossover between the NLL and the PLL now. So any of the players that play in the NLL can still make it to the PLL game, because last year there was that big crossover that first week of the season, and the year before that, I think it was like 3 weeks into it. It went through the end of June. Yeah. The only other thing that I guess, again, we can end on a positive note, no back-to-back games. Like, there's no Friday, Saturday, there's no Friday, Sunday games this year. It's all spaced out perfectly. There's really 2 buys built in on the 23rd, so they get to enjoy if they celebrate Christmas there, they don't have to worry about traveling anywhere. And then, the week of February 9th, 10th, and 11th, they don't have any games that week either. So it is, I like the schedule. I know there's some benefits to the start and then tough in the back end, but what's nice about this, Phil, is it's close to kicking off the season again. I mean, your season tickets are going to be popping up in that invisible wallet on your phone soon. The schedule's out. Training camp's around the corner in about a month. It's getting close, Phil. It's getting close, and we're almost back to 2 shows a week. Yeah,
we're not quite at the 2-month mark, but we are rapidly approaching.
So, Phil, is there anything else you want to add to this little bit longer of an episode? But, Phil, it was worth the wait because I'm excited for what is to come in the NLL season this year.
Yeah, I think the only thing with it being a little bit longer of an episode is the crucial point that we do have the breakdowns of the time and the description of the show. So make sure you are kind of clicking through. If you really want to skip to our Bandits talk and our schedule talk, make sure you look at those descriptions to see if there's a specific team you want to hear us talk about. If you want to listen to the entire thing, feel free, kick back and listen to a great show.
Yeah, and
or
again,
watch.
We
or
are
watch it
on
YouTube.
YouTube now, so if you want to see our mugs, we've been there for a couple months.
I have a nice
so,
cat shirt
actually,
on today, so.
See, I'm wearing a Sabres third alternate jersey, my Cody McCormick jersey, just because it was Sabres Day, so I went with
I wore a cat shirt. It says, "You can't stop me out. I'm on a roll." So,
and
if you are watching on YouTube, you got to enjoy that.
Yeah, we're gonna leave it at that because that was a good note to end on. So, on our next episode, we'll go over the Bills. Scary game versus Miami. We'll go over any of the Sabres preseason games. We'll go over week 5 of Fantasy Blitz and anything else related to the Bandits and the NLL. Not the schedule's out. It's going to be a very fun time. Bandits, get your social media game a little bit stronger. Get to the gym. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram at Threads at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. I said that. I'm screwing this up, Phil. I might have just had a heat stroke. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.